We are joined with, I think, a new guest. Dan, I don't think I've ever had you on this show. Dan Cohen. How you doing, man? You doing okay?
I'm good. Getting my morning going. I've never been on. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Which is like getting your morning donut. Dan Cohen, he's a journalist, filmmaker. He has contributed to Al Jazeera English, Alternate, Electronic Intifada, Gray Zone, Middle East, Mondoweiss, The Nation, Vice News, Mint Press. You've been around, to put it mildly. You've been around. Let me ask you this. I didn't hit, there's a tweet that you responded to, and I kind of want to dig into the tweet because I'm interested in this aspect of Charlie Kirk's death. I've been fascinated by the way each side has been trying to use him as a cudgel to hit the other side. It's almost like there wasn't a real person. That a lot of what has been put out has been this kind of deification or just desecration. And depending upon the side that you're on, using that club to beat the head of the other side. It is very weird. It's very strange. The images that they've come out with Jesus taking Charlie Kirk away to somewhere. Like all of this stuff is very strange. It's very bizarre. Let's start there though. Give me your take on this. And just to give reference point, it was this tweet that you were responding to from Sarah Bills right here. It says, Sarah says, why was Charlie giving multiple members of the Trump administration his, quote, final wishes before he died? First Miller, now Noam. And you point out, he says, because they're following the same script. Once you see that they're national security state actors, then you can't unsee it. We are governed by highly paid liars via cable TV, social media, and podcasts. And just be clear, Sarah wasn't saying that he knew he was going to die. His point was, how are all of these people all of a sudden bringing this up as if, I was the last person to talk to Charlie and Charlie told me X or Y. Break down your comment for me.
I think, so my comment that these are national security state actors. I mean, well, Sarah firstly was pointing out that the Homeland Security Secretary, what's her name? The former governor of
Noam?
Yeah, Kristi Noem.
Yeah.
And then who was the other one? JD Van. Who was the other person she was referring?
It was, let me see. It was Kristi Noem, and it was
Miller, Stephen Miller, yes. Of course.
Yeah.
Both said that he sorry, I have to switch my brain from a completely different subject that I was just working on. Both said that Charlie Kirk had told them right before he was killed that he was, we need to crack down on the terrorist left, things like that. That's not an exact quote, but which is obvious, fodder for just right wing. Everyone, the kind of narrative that the left is crazy and they celebrate killing and we need to crack down on them. And, and they're not only they celebrate killing, but they're killers even.
Yeah.
And that, so what my point, and Sarah said, look, they're saying the same thing, which is very strange. And she clarified, I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk knew he was going to die, but it's strange that they're both saying this. And my point is, yes, these people are scripted. They are saying that for a very specific political reason. Yes. Kristi Noem was put in that position. If you look at, she's a grandmother, but she got like a nice haircut, got like plastic surgery, got Botox.
Kristi Noem is a grandmother? Are you serious?
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. She's an older lady. I mean, she's into her 60s, I believe.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And they made her kind of like, hot, quote unquote. They tried to make her like look physically attractive and put her in this position as Homeland Security for this theater where she goes out with like ICE agents and cracks down on criminals and like does all these appearances on social media in particular. Okay. Stephen Miller is saying the same thing. So this is clearly a script that went out. And my point is, I think actually a fundamental thing that people need to understand. Yeah, you can see like, that's
she's 60.
I mean, we can look up exactly Kristi Noem age.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, she's 53, so she's not 60, but she is a grandmother.
She still looks good for 53. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, if you look at pictures of her like from before, if you look up Kristi Noem, like age, you can find pictures of her from before where she looks much more plain, like homely.
Oh, she looks her age. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But and she got plastic surgery. Clearly, she clearly does like Botox, lip enhancements, these kind of things. That's not just because of vanity. That's because they're trying to market her for kind of conservative audiences, to bring them into this whole like MAGA farm and support Trump. So, having like a good looking older woman to go and do these appearances on social media where she's out there with the ICE agents, getting the criminals, this kind of thing, that is all propaganda. And it's a theater, is how I describe it. National security state theater. And really, this is the main thing that I think people on all sides of the political spectrum have to understand about social media. We just assume that, they're like social media is pretty normal. Like we have our X accounts, we have our whatever, Instagram, whatever you use. I mean, in particular, a lot of people I think who are in journalism, who are in our spheres, use X in particular. But we are kind of under this sort of illusion that there is some amount, there's free speech or some amount, or it was censored, but Elon restored it. And even if we don't really like Elon and his politics, now we have free speech because a lot of the people who were banned, were brought back, and, it's a place of free exchange and all these things. When in reality, it is not only is this a corporate platform, it is military grade social engineering made to it where there is a lot of inorganic activity and scripted national security state actors that are difficult to identify and that are put in place to rise at certain points in order to kind of steer how people think, in order to engineer their mind. Right. Because the most important thing is this, our consciousness. That's what they're really fighting for. How we think, how we perceive reality, and then that, determines what we do with our day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis. What political,
such a good point.
So
such a good point.
So the thing is, if the more we get good, quote unquote, at social media, the more we build a big following, and we feel like we're interacting with important people, maybe some journalists who you used to like really you really look up to, and all of a sudden they're favoriting and retweeting your posts, and maybe you're DMing with them, or this, a lot of that is so incredibly easy to manipulate. For example, I'll give an example. The account Syrian Girl, Maram Susli, she's Australian Syrian. She said, well, Charlie Kirk followed me recently on X, and that is proof that he was changing his position on Israel. Now, and that went viral. That got like several thousand retweets and many more likes. Charlie Kirk follows like I think it was like 185,000 people on Twitter, on X.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That guy just follows like literally anything.
Yeah.
So number one, if that is somehow meaningful, I just don't see it. I think that's at best, I would say, wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's her take. It's her point of view. It's like her little window.
Right. And secondly, especially, bigger figures like Charlie Kirk, they're not spending all day like a lot of social media users who are really good at X. They're not spending all their time on social media. You know, he's like a political actor. He's, you know, flying here and running Turning Points USA, or, you know, and this kind of thing. So there are people that manage those accounts. So there's no, even if, you know, so there's no indication that Charlie Kirk himself, it was Charlie Kirk's account. Could be run by literally anybody. Could be run by his assistant, his hired social media intern. It could be run by somebody directly working in the national security state. And this is the kind of thing where it's like, oh, Charlie Kirk's following me. He must be having some kind of change. Oh, he's, you know, so this is the point that I'm trying to make, is that all of these platforms, not only X, TikTok, Facebook, you know, they're for different generations. Now it's like boomers who use Facebook. It's like a lot of kids who use TikTok and, you know, like, I don't know, Instagram and YouTube. And Rumble is now the like alternative platform, you know, but Rumble is like another one that this is, you know, they can make certain podcasts or shows rise to be, you know, all of a sudden you're getting you're the one that's out front to get tens of thousands of viewers or whatever live. So all of this is basically an invented reality in many ways, and it's very difficult. It's like WWE or WWF, where like, you know, it's how do we know what's fake and what's real? Like, it's scripted, but there are things that are happening that are real, but we don't know. And the overwhelming majority of social media users do not understand the level to which it is scripted, and these political actors and political of the single uniparty that rules this country these people are following scripts. The national security state is thinking generations ahead in its plans of what it wants to do. You and I are reacting to the news on a daily basis of what's happening. We are not understanding there is a major long-term agenda. And, you know, the big question, of course, what are those agendas? And that's, you know, that's a huge question. But my point is, social media is their terrain. It is their theater. It is their matrix. It is not ours. And it is not a public square that, you know, they just kind of bought and are making money off of. It is their form of controlling our minds.
Yeah. I used to be a software engineer. I was a software engineer for like 10 years. Any platform that there's a layer of code between you and that platform, I can control. And I say that to say, whether you have sock puppet accounts, whether you have certain algorithms that push certain things over other things, those things are manipulated or can be manipulated in a way that serves certain agendas. So yeah, you're right. It's not reality in the reality sense of the word. There's always a space. There's a rift between you trying to hit at reality versus the code base that's there to give you, let's say, a view, a take on what that reality is. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I give you, especially political actors, they tend to be on script. So, for example, you had all of the drones that go into Ukraine, and then all of a sudden you see 80 on my site, maybe like 30 internet sites coming up saying Donald Trump is weak. Donald Trump allows NATO to be attacked. And they're saying almost the exact same thing with maybe a different tone, a different letter, a different word here or there. They're on script. They have a very specific agenda of what they want to accomplish in referencing that particular event, creating hysteria around that particular event, trying to get a following on that particular event to get it to bubble up on the side of the thing. Those people, they know that these weren't, you know, this wasn't an attack on NATO. That doesn't stop them from pushing it out there in order to try to pull Donald Trump in a particular direction. It's scripted, agreed. And it's not just that, it can be all sorts of things. I mean, Cuban Twitter, if you remember, where I think the CIA created this kind of Twitter-like thing that they control, that they wanted to use to try to overthrow this Cuban state. It only got like 30 or 40,000 people on it. But even that, it's like 30, 40,000 people on a device created by the CIA to overthrow Cuba. It's like this stuff. I agree with you. No, I totally agree with you. I don't think people look at it in those terms, though.
Let me add something. I mean, yeah. So like people understand, a lot of anti-imperialists know about that episode in particular. Well, yeah, that episode in particular where they had that, Twitter kind of thing that they operated. I think it was like Zunzuneo or something like that in Cuba to overthrow the government. Social media was clearly a weapon for regime change. So if it is a weapon for regime change and social engineering against Cuban sovereignty, well, what does that mean that we are using it every day? How are we being engineered in a far more sophisticated way than it, was like a decade or so ago? Another thing I might point out about that is the idea that, okay, so like we all see that there are coordinated groups of liars. October 7th, perfect example, the 40 beheaded babies hoax, these kinds of things where like everyone who is paying attention or is critical basically saw that as an basically obvious hoax and saw that it was coordinated. That was very clearly, I mean, we know that came from Netanyahu's office and was handed out, okay, that was very obvious. So we know these things happen, and those are the most obvious ones. What I would suggest, the example that you gave about like these drones into Poland, in order to convince Donald Trump to be more aggressive towards Russia or whatever, I think that the idea that Donald Trump is has these anti-interventionist instincts and is pushed by hawks very well could be and probably is part of the script.
Yes.
That's the national security state script, because at no point, because Donald Trump speaks from both sides of his mouth all the time. He says, we don't seek regime change in Iran. We don't want war. We're going to negotiate with them. And then he uses those negotiations to give Israel the element of surprise for Israel to launch this war, which then Trump, of course, supports in every way, and then actually even joined in. The same thing with Hamas. The U.S. was, we got really tired of Joe Biden. Everyone's, Trump is here. We got the temporary ceasefire. And then negotiations with Hamas, and this is great. And wow, finally some sense here. And then the element of surprise, boom, So that to me is that's coordinated. That's not an accident. That's not
Soleimani.
Exactly. Another one. Precisely. Yes. They got those guys together. Boom, hit them. So these are the same. These are scripts, national security state scripts. This is not happening again and again by accident. And if it were one time, that Trump got played or got rolled, then I'd say, okay, that might carry some water. This idea that, he's being pressured like that. But the reality, I think, fool me once, shame on you, right? Fool me like 30 times, like then at some point, I'm just a goldfish, like going into the, the side of the bowl again and again, like think. And that's basically, I think, where we're at. And people who, and I'm not, accusing you of this, obviously, but like even myself for a long time, I really thought that, like Trump really does have these anti-interventionist instincts. Like he sells it really well. And I think this is broadly accepted in anti-imperialist thinking.
Oh, I don't know why. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt when he first got in office and was like, all right, let's see what he does. But then you're bombing Yemen. You're trying to attack Venezuela. You just murdered 11 people in a Venezuelan boat. We just found out about the North Koreans that he murdered.
Right.
I mean, you can go down the list on these things. This is not a person who's anti-interventionist. He may be trying to do it on the cheap, but anti-interventionist, no.
And he sells it quite well. I mean, it's like, but Biden said, Palestinians have human rights or something. And AOC says, finally she said like genocide or something or whatever, Biden and AOC, Genocide Joe, and, the future of the Democratic Party and AOC don't care. Like these people are scripted national security state actors. With Biden, it was too obvious. With Kamala, it was too obvious. That's why she lost, because she couldn't sell the story to the public. Trump is a great actor. I mean, he's been in, he was in Home Alone. He was in he did like pro wrestling appearances.
Yes.
This guy is really an actor, and if you look at who created um, the image of Donald Trump as a sort of conservative, populist billionaire who really just kind of hates the establishment and stick it to them, it was Steve Bannon.
Yes.
Steve Bannon, the former Goldman Sachs banker who crafted Donald Trump's strategy. He was his media strategist, and he basically engineered his campaign to get him into the White House. Yes. And Donald Trump is really a longtime Democrat. There's a quote from him in like 2006 or 2005 where he says, "I identify as a Democrat," as if it's like an identity thing. And so he's a longtime Democrat, a corrupt New York City real estate mogul who was given everything and is just a kind of disgusting, dirty guy who is everything that conservative, rural, Bible thumping America hates, reviles. But somehow this guy, they put a red hat that says "Make America Great Again" and fashioned him into this image and sold it to middle America. And that mirage, that script is still in play right now.
Agreed. I think, though, if I'm being honest with you, I don't think Donald Trump would have won. He had no political opposition in real sense. Like even now, does he have any real political opposition? It's almost as if the Democrats went with this idea that Donald Trump is Satan, Donald Trump is the devil, Donald Trump is Mussolini, he's Hitler, he's going to put Liz Cheney against the wall and shoot her in the face.
Right.
So you shouldn't vote for Trump. We have all this lawfare that was effectively used. And then when he wins, you have nothing to fall back on. You threw any and everything that you can think of. You as hysterical as you can be. They say never go full retarded. Well, they went full retarded. And at the end of it all, he's still standing. And so at that point, it's like, okay, well, what do you have else to throw at him? You've done everything. You've tried to throw him in jail. You've called him everything but a child of God. You hit him with everything but the kitchen sink. And none of it worked. And he was able to get this kind of political coalition of Republicans where he could consolidate his political power with effectively the Republicans. Now, they may have limits, especially if Trump is like, hey, I need you guys to sign a deal to end the Ukraine war. They're going to tell Trump to F off. But in regards to just basic politics, Trump has been able to consolidate power and destroy his political opposition. It's not like Democrats are like, here's the plan that we're going along with, and here's the policies. And there's nothing coming out of them. Nothing at all.
Let me put this out there.
Yeah.
So the opposition, the Democratic opposition to Trump, from when he was a candidate until and immediately when he got into power, of course, when he won, immediately they launched Russiagate.
Right.
Now, for anybody who was, watching critically and wasn't being partisan, you could see that it was obviously phony from the start. And what did it do? It strengthened Trump in the eyes of middle America. Was that part of the script? Was that intended to fail, to make Donald Trump look better?
Oh, you think all of this is theater? You think that this is just Punchy Judy with somebody pulling the strings for the Punchy Judy parts?
Steve Bannon is deeply connected in Hollywood. Where did Trump derangement syndrome come from?
Hillary Clinton wanted to find a way in order to make herself. Yeah, and Russiagate was a way to do it.
You're talking about Russiagate. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I brought up Russiagate, obviously. Okay. Russiagate, obviously, Hillary Clinton and intelligence agencies.
Right.
Now, did Donald Trump ever really deviate from what Hillary Clinton would have done or what the intelligence agencies, what the deep state, the establishment wanted him to do? No.
Maybe.
So,
we don't know that. Keep in mind, Hillary Clinton was talking about putting air defense in Syria. Hillary Clinton was easily going to get further involved in Ukraine without any issue. Donald Trump
did that. Donald when Obama was president, of course the Maidan coup happened.
Right.
Trump came in, and Obama said, "I will only send defensive weapons to Ukraine.
Right. Trump
I'm
said
not going to
javelins.
send lethal weapons." Trump said, "No, we're sending lethal weapons." He escalated it. Biden,
why?
Why?
Because just to be clear, it wasn't in a vacuum. They were screaming bloody murder that Donald Trump was effectively an errand boy for Vladimir Putin. That any and everything that he did.
He's the president. Why does he have to listen to what the screeching Democrats are saying? Like at that point, he had won.
Seriously? I mean, come on. You know that these guys, when they are under political pressure, what he was, I mean, they were literally trying to impeach him. They impeached him twice. First time was nonsense. Second one was fair game. I guess I'm saying I don't think it's not unreasonable when a massive wave of political pressure is being applied. Hell, they even had an investigation. If Mueller would have found anything, they would have taken Donald Trump out on a rail and put him in a cage.
And that's exactly, they found nothing. All of it failed. All the impeachments, all of the Russiagate stuff, it all failed, and it all consolidated him as the man. It brought him back to the White House again. I agree
with you on that. I'm just pointing out that human beings do respond to political pressure, and anything that Trump did, they were trying to get Donald Trump.
You and I are subject to pressure, but like the halls of power, like they don't give a shit how much we demonstrate against against the genocide or the coup in Venezuela. None of that makes a bit of difference. We could be out there, unless we are actually stopping the machinery, physically blocking it from happening. We can protest all day long. They do not care. Biden didn't care. Trump doesn't care. You and I are subject to like what our peers and what people think about us. Like that influences us. Those powerful, the U.S. government doesn't care. The Republicans don't care if they call him Putin's puppet and say there's a P tape. They can say that all they want. And if you look at what I was going to say before, if you look at Trump, the whole phenomenon of Trump derangement syndrome,
right?
Think about Kathy Griffin beheading Trump. Remember that?
Bloody stump of Trump.
Right. All that kind of stuff. If you watch, The View, a lot of that came from like Hollywood and media personalities, and especially Hollywood. Steve Bannon is deep in Hollywood. He was a Hollywood producer for years. After he left Goldman Sachs, he was in Hollywood for several years working on documentaries, where he was the executive producer of numerous documentaries. He has stakes in production firms. He's connected to like Seinfeld, the Seinfeld show, for example. Like he is deep in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Trump derangement syndrome, those kind of antics came from Hollywood. And what does it do? It makes middle America look at these insane Hollywood liberals and be like, they want to behead our president. Like, yeah, I don't love Trump. He's kind of, sleazy, but like, look at these, this guy's changing. This guy's really changing. Just the same way that Charlie Kirk was really changing. What I'm saying. I'm just at a point where I just see this stuff, and there's very compelling evidence that this stuff is scripted. These are scripts.
I don't doubt that some of it is scripted. You would have my complete agreement on some of it.
It's hard to tell when it's hard to tell where the distinction is between. Okay, part of it is the script can change.
Yeah.
It's like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. Like the script has to correspond to reality, or else it's not gonna work.
Rejected. Right.
Yeah. So, like, did they want Donald Trump to win? I don't know. Maybe they would have been perfectly happy if Hillary Clinton won. Did they want?
I think you're leaving out incompetence. Like, meaning these people may just be stupid too. Like, if you get my point. Like when they were going after Donald Trump, and they're using Hillary Clinton is going with this whole Russiagate stuff. An intelligence state goes with the whole Russiagate stuff. And this stuff gets stovepiped into the FBI where they have an investigation. As a person, just as a human being, that's pressure. That is political pressure, where they are trying to rip you out of office, and anything that they can do to rip you out of office, and anything that they find. Every narrative at that point that's created goes under this model of Trump is doing this because he's working with Putin. So it's like, well, Trump doesn't put sanctions on Putin for stealing the election because he's working with Putin, as opposed to the common sense thing of, well, if you pass sanctions on Russia for stealing the election, it implies that Donald Trump didn't win the election on his own. But everything was put under that lens. Even the whole, well, why doesn't Trump give offensive weapons? Well, obviously he's working with Putin. Like, none of this stuff was necessarily associated with reality, but all of it was fit through a context. I'm saying that Trump, like any other person, is stuck with the gravity of that context. And you can see the effect on him now. When Donald Trump is going out and giving press briefings, and he spends like 15 minutes saying, well, I put in javelins, I've been difficult on Putin, I passed sanctions, I did all of this. He's not saying that for his health. He's saying that because he is still stuck with this idea that some people believe that he was working with the Russians, and anything that he does in that context needs to be somehow justified by showing how much of a badass he was towards the Russians. It bit into him. I'm saying, I agree with you that some of this stuff is scripted, but the behavior is getting across something else. Like, this is not like Trump reading a script. This is Trump dealing with, for all intents and purposes, seemingly trauma of that first term of the shit that they were throwing at him. Tell me if you think I'm wrong on this.
I think this is a case of, again, fool me once, shame on me, shame on you.
Right.
Where, like, in the first term, I was on the same page with what you're saying. Like, they're pressuring him all the time, and he doesn't really want. He even met with Putin and all this stuff, but like Trump, Trump is a candidate. I mean, of course, it's candidate talk, but I'm going to end the Ukraine war on the first day. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, honestly, you could end the Ukraine war quite easily if you wanted to. But he's like announcing new sanctions all the time. And then he says, "This is Biden's war. This is Biden's war. This isn't my war." He says that's like his go-to every time. That is obviously a script. That's obviously like a rehearsed thing for him to say.
Yeah.
This is Biden's war. Like, no, this is your war, and it was your war when you decided to sent offensive weapons in your first term, and you escalated it. So this is a bipartisan. This is a uniparty war. This is not, just a Democrat thing.
Agreed.
You were campaigning with Lindsey Graham at the same time that you were telling people, like, I just see this as like right-wing
He was lying to his teeth. Yeah, he was lying to his teeth. Obviously.
But it's like right-wing Obama. That it's like, people were tired of Bush, and we got this like country ass idiot who is clearly like stupid and went to war on Iraq on a series of lies, and we shed all this blood and treasure and killed all these Iraqis, and now we get like a good-looking, like, black dude as a time when identity politics are becoming like more important, and wow, we have like a minority as president, and he says like change and all this stuff, and like people were immensely hopeful, and it was a huge letdown. He was the quintessential establishment candidate. And it's the same thing with Trump. It's like, these are the, generational kind of scripts that I'm saying, that it's like, okay, we have this goal that we want to do, say, 50 or 100 years or whatever it is. This is what we're trying to do. How are we going to maintain this theater until then? Okay, we need to invade this country. We need to invade this country. We need to roll out this program domestically, blah, 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 blah. Look at these social phenomenons. Like, it's like, that's how they see us. And we have to keep the image of democracy. And sometimes we have to make this party look really stupid and crazy so we can have this one rise. Like, I just see it
in this case.
That's a great question.
I can craft the exact same thing with individual actors. Like, meaning you have a moneyed interest that pushes on political parties to do X or Y. The money interest pays for both. So you get this kind of weird uniparty thing in the way that it functions or operates, even though they have to mouth certain things from their own constituencies, even though ultimately they back very similar policies. Like, I don't need a they for that in that case.
Right.
You get Donald Trump having to go at Jeb Bush and then leans into the whole anti-war thing, even though obviously he's still trying to do primacy for the United States, regardless of what comes out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. You get Joe Biden, who's like, oh, I'm working tirelessly to stop the war. Okay, no, you're not, dude. You're just lying. Like, some of this stuff is just them doing this stuff for political expedience to get from point A to point B. I don't know. For one, I don't think the U.S. has 50 years. For them, they can plan out whatever they want. I don't think this is going to last 50 years. And I don't know.
Well, maybe they want to destroy the U.S. as we know it, like balkanize it, or.
That's the other interesting point. Did you read the article? And we can end on this one. Well, the guy, I think it was a Russian guy, who was pointing out that Trump's plan is to devalue the dollar, that the debt is so high that it is impossible to pay back. And so the goal is to get all of these countries on cryptocurrency where the debt can be manipulated in a way where the dollar can be devalued to such a degree where the U.S. can, at that point, basically you're crashing the U.S. market, crashing the U.S. economy.
I didn't read that. No, it's a compelling argument. I would love to read that.
Yeah, I need to find the article for it.
I would. Let me say one more kind of.
Please.
One more thing about that. I think one of the big reasons for COVID, in fact, was you brought up the national debt and we're talking about what are the long-term plans of like our ruling class. COVID, obviously, and this is we could talk about this for like an hour, easily. What if you look at our population pyramid of and especially population pyramids in the West in general, but not only in the West, also in China and Russia and Japan. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about, of course, the United States. We have a rapidly aging population. The boomers are dying out. They are causing a huge strain on the healthcare system. They are not producing and contributing to the tax base. And, our generation, I'm 40 now, I guess, I don't know how old you are, somewhere.
I'm ancient. I'm much more ancient than you are.
Really? Oh, congratulations, bro.
I just had a birthday. August 31st. I'm 48.
All right. Congratulations. But like our generation and, younger than us, we're not having as many kids. Right. Obviously, our population is not growing. We have basically an inverted population. A healthy population pyramid looks like this, a triangle, a lot of young people, a lot of babies aging, and people die often. Okay. Ours is basically the opposite. And they've been seeing for decades, they've been able to see that the boomers post World War II, everyone has a lot of kids, are going to become burdens on the system. And everyone's been saying Social Security is gonna, can't pay for this. Social Security is not going to exist when, you and I retire. And our national debt is enormous. Now, COVID, with what I argue is a fake pandemic, a pandemic that did not actually happen, but was projected through social media, through cable TV, but especially social media, was used to kill a lot of, in particular, older people in order to sculpt those population pyramids to keep the system intact and to keep this whole thing going. And this is actually not my theory. I can't take credit for this at all. If you want to talk to one of the most interesting people I know, this is the theory, the observation of a guy named Jonathan J. Cooey, who was an academic. He was an academic biologist working at the University of Pittsburgh. who was fired for pointing out that the COVID shots were actually an old technology that biologists use all the time called transfection, that it wasn't a new technology at all. And he was basically researching on his own, doing all kinds of research and streaming on his own to figure out what's going on with the pandemic. He was then hired by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK brought him on to help him write his book, The Wuhan Lab Leak, or The Wuhan Cover-Up, which is all, the case that the COVID-19 came from the Wuhan lab. Yeah. And in the middle of writing that, Cooey realized the whole thing doesn't even make sense, that the thesis that COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 was a novel virus, came from a laboratory, or was even a novel virus at all, didn't make any sense. And we were being fooled. We were being lied to that there was a pandemic. When he went to RFK to say this, this is what I figured out, RFK fired him.
Yeah.
Now, RFK doesn't have the scientific literacy to be able to evaluate that argument. He just told him this isn't the place for that. So it's like he hired him to write this book. He hired this scientist to write the book. And then the scientist came and said, no, we got it all wrong. And he's like, you're out. Now, RFK, of course, was brought in as he's now Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Right.
That is part of a script, is what I'm saying. So, like, I highly recommend you interview Cooey on this.
Yeah, I disagree with you on that. I'll be blunt. I just disagree with you. I mean, I've known too many people who died from COVID for it to not be real. Like, I don't know how social media was killing people with COVID. I would say it that way.
Well, like that's why I said this would be a long conversation to get into. But I mean, what I can say, okay, I'll give you a clear example. It took me a couple of years to figure this out. When I was, I got the shots. At first, I was paying attention to what's going on in China as an anti-imperialist, and I was like, man, this is really serious. We need to be masking. No one's masking around here. This is crazy. Like, we need to lock down. Look, China locked down and they're beating the virus. And, I'm telling you, I came from the complete other side. I was, what I would say, was completely taken in. It took me when I started to realize maybe this is not what it appears, is I saw, and I can show you all this stuff, but the U.S. government issued, the FDA, I believe in particular, issued a new protocol for how a death certificate is written. Normally, how a death certificate has always been written in this country is it is a medical opinion. So, like, you can have all kinds of medical opinions, right? It's a medical opinion from either a doctor, but usually it's like a coroner or something like that.
Right.
And how it works is you have it's a sequence of events that led to the death. So you have the immediate cause of death, and that is a sequence that leads back to like the underlying cause of death. So say you died of some viral some infection. Well, you died of that infection. That's the immediate cause of death, because your body couldn't fight it because you had, cancer.
Something else going on. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so
I see what you mean.
And so
the underlying cause of death was cancer, but the virus was the thing that actually did the
right. And what actually killed you at that moment. But so it's like something that you and I or anyone with a healthy, normal immune system could fight off because you were very sick with cancer or heart disease or diabetes or whatever it is. You couldn't do that. Your body couldn't fight it off. So what goes into the records, is the underlying cause of death. Now, the FDA, I believe it was the FDA, I have to look to be sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the FDA, issued orders in February, March of 2020 that instructed hospitals, coroners, all of these that deal with death certification, and it's mostly not doctors who deal with death certification, by the way. It instructed them to completely change how a death certificate is written. So now, firstly, the immediate cause of death is what you should focus on. not the underlying cause of death. And secondly, anywhere that COVID-19 is listed, that will be considered the underlying cause of death. And this is only applied to COVID-19. Right. So like for everything else, it's the same protocol. But for this specific thing, we've completely flipped upside down and then said anywhere COVID is found, we're going to call that a COVID death.
I know, but by definition, that means COVID was real.
No. I'm saying that according to what I'm saying. Okay, hold on, let me get there. So if I'm not saying that doesn't mean that it's real. It means that what they are saying is we want you to change how you count completely in a completely different way. Yeah. Now, if you look at that, doesn't mean COVID was real. What I would say is that they were testing for things that were not a novel virus. What they were finding were things that already exist all over the place. They were using PCR tests, which no one knows. Did you ever know what a PCR test is? Do you know what PCR stands for to this day?
I knew at one point. I don't remember now.
Keep
in mind, the COVID thing was a while back.
I'm not trying to call you out, but what I'm saying is myself too. I'm like, we're sticking these things up our nose. All of a sudden, overnight, it's accepted that this thing called a PCR test, which no one knows what the hell that even stands for, let alone what it actually is scientifically. We don't have the scientific literacy to even know what that is, are being shoved up our nose, and that tells us whether or not we have this virus, even if we're not have an infection, even if we're not physically sick. Maybe you're still contagious, right? That was what we were told. In fact, those were non-specific. Those tests were made to find any tiny amount of a particle of any kind of coronavirus. So if I give you an analogy, say like the police want to find the Batmobile. So they're like, the Batmobile's around here somewhere, and we're going to use this test. And the Batmobile, we all know what the Batmobile is, very specific. So what they do is, we found a tire, okay? It's non-specific. We found a tire, and there are Batmobiles everywhere. We found many Batmobiles, right? So
I can tell you, in medicine, oftentimes the test is looking for something that is. Meaning you don't need something that says we found this specific thing. What you're looking for is, do we have this particle? And predominance of the people with this particular particle will have X or Y. I understand your point. You're saying that a non-specific tire can be for any car, not just for the Batmobile. And when they found the tire, they're saying, hey, we have the Batmobile here. I understand your point.
And everybody has, and then everybody has this. So what I'm saying, and again, this is, I was completely taken in when I was like going through this, but
everybody didn't have it. I never got COVID.
Hold on. What I found, I didn't. Supposedly I had Omicron, but I was fine. Yeah. What I'm saying is, if you simply take let's assume that the PCR is real and that COVID was real. Let's just assume it was real. If you take the normal way that is used for everything else to this day to quantify deaths, to certify a death, that protocol, and it has to be the only way you could do. You have to apply the same definition to everything. Otherwise, you're going to have none of it makes sense, right? So they took a completely different one. If you took that normal way and applied it to COVID-19. And I went through the CDC's death certificate data, which is all available online in a database called Wonder. About 90%, according to them, according to their data, would not be considered COVID deaths. Meaning, so that's the overwhelming majority. It would not be COVID deaths.
I hear you.
That was the first thing for me to get from completely agreeing with you to where I am today. I know we're not, we're going maybe longer than we planned.
No, you're fine.
This is a big question, but that was part of the national security state theater, is what I'm telling you. And I know, what I'm saying sounds crazy to a lot of people, but what I would ask you, Jamar, and your audience is to not immediately like dismiss, because really no one else is saying this, and certainly not on like Twitter or like on right or left, or maybe it sounds more right wing. I don't know, whatever. Don't immediately dismiss it, because it's like it might sound crazy, but
don't take this wrong, but a lot of people died, and you can say that they changed the mechanism. Fair enough, but they would have to change the mechanism all across the world. In Brazil, they would have had to change it in Israel. They would have had to change it in Russia, China, etc., where all of these people were also dying. I don't think that the FDA was operating in any of these other countries.
The World Health Organization issued, okay, for one thing, the World Health Organization, a lot of different countries had a lot of different protocols. However, in particular in the West, the World Health Organization issued its protocols and guidelines, and actually wrote a piece not long ago showing that the figures who wrote the protocols for the World Health Organization were part of a basically massive lie to make the lab leak theory appear as if it were.
Oh, look, I don't doubt you on that. Fauci was full of shit. Agreed.
Fauci.
You could look at the emails that they were trying to hide and bury. Fauci was totally full of shit. We were totally in gain of function research.
No. What I'm saying, no. I'm saying that the lab leak theory is bullshit, and it was and is scripted national security state theater to make us think that it was the real narrative that they were hiding from us. What I showed in a recent piece, you can read this on my website, Uncaptured Media. I have my own site, uncaptured.media.
Yeah.
If you remember, I mean, this is going back to like July 2020. There was a supposed Chinese whistleblower named Li Mengyan who came out on the Tucker Carlson show and said, so primetime Fox TV, this is not like, and said, COVID is a bioweapon. I just fled from Hong Kong, and I'm telling you that COVID was a bioweapon from a Chinese lab, and she, was then seen as she was the first lab leak whistleblower. She was the original lab leak whistleblower, and at that point, it was considered like right wing and maybe racist or whatever. And they were calling it the China virus and all this stuff. What I found. And I show this in the investigation, is that Li Mengyan lied about who she was. She made it appear as if she had never been in the United States. She was actually married in the United States, and she is married into one of the most prominent families in the biomedical apparatus here in Washington in particular, whose work was substantially funded by Anthony Fauci's NIH. And
but this is why I don't believe every random thing that I hear on this stuff.
Well,
because,
but this,
as you point out, narratives get created all the time.
But this was the narrative that was created. And now and at that point, everyone thought, no, it just like respectable people only thought I probably came from nature, a bat cave or whatever, and it was like considered right wing and racist maybe to say that it came from a lab, and it slowly became accepted especially because of scripted actors and social media. This is what I'm saying is like to tie this all the way back to the beginning of the conversation. The more that we, I'm going to say we, because I'm part of this too. The more that we consume social media, and the more that we use it and think that we are good at it, and that we are necessarily seeing the lies like and some of the lies are so obvious. The October 7th lies, the
Yeah.
drones in Poland. These lies are so obvious to us. Other lies we get taken in by, and it's very extremely difficult to know, and especially when it becomes like our profession, that like we're like, this is what we do professionally, this is what we devote our lives to, all this stuff. It's really easy to get taken in, and then when your job depends on it, I'm sure you've heard the quote, never try to convince a man of something upon which his
job depends upon him not believing.
Exactly. It's that kind of thing. So like, we become part of the script and we don't even know it. I'm not saying that you Jamaro, you have to accept what I'm saying, everything about COVID, just because I'm telling you. What I'm saying is like, please have an open mind. Please take this stuff into consideration and go check it out. Go into the rabbit hole, look at some of the stuff I've published, interview this cat, Jonathan J. Cooey, on this stuff. Ask him, how did you get in touch with RFK? Why did he, interview him, ask him every question.
He's one guy against, like, that's like saying somebody ran an experiment. The person came up with a result, but nobody else came up with a result. Is he right? He could be. Am I going to believe one rando guy? This is kind of what
everybody in the media, basically everybody said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. That at that point you were crazy if you didn't say that. Everybody said,
as I pointed out, he could be right.
I'm not saying you have to blindly accept him. I'm not even saying you have to say he's the most important guy. I'm telling you my opinion, that I think he's one of the sharpest minds in the country, and is a real basically a threat to the system, and that's why we haven't heard of him. That's why he's not invited on big podcasts. That's also in part, he doesn't try to engage with social media because he sees it as a theater.
He thinks it's trash.
Yeah, because it's like, so it's very, very easy to be co-opted into the script. And it's like when you step into the matrix, whatever, it's hard to know what is organic, what is inorganic, what's fake. And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, that happened to me. I really
to all of us. Honestly, it is very difficult to find the floor. Agreed. And it is easy to, let's say, fold ourselves in the narratives one way or the other.
Exactly.
So I agree with you on that point. I do agree.
I'm just saying all this stuff needs to be re-examined, and like the fact that what happened with COVID is considered like kind of, that's old news, that's a long time ago. That is part of the multi-generational plan that we are living through, of how that restructured society and carried out all kinds of things that most people are not even aware of, but a lot of people suffered from in a multitude of ways. And to say that was like, well, that was like years ago. Yes, it was, but our society has been completely restructured since then, and it's still extremely relevant. So I know, like right now, Gaza and Ukraine and Charlie Kirk are like more front and center in our minds, but we have to be thinking in not only like reacting to the headlines and what's happening, but react, longer term.
And we can end it on this, but I think from your point of view, this is kind of like weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Like the ramifications go for decades. We're still dealing with the ramifications of this kind of Project for New America that was kicked off by Bush lying us into a war.
They just got Syria, a few months ago.
After 20 something years.
Yeah.
And I think your point is like the restructuring of the state in the way that COVID has affected all of this it will have long-term repercussions, and that our assumptions for it need to be re-examined. I do get the point. I'm not discounting you. I don't want you to think that I'm just blowing you off. I'm not. I do get where you're coming from with it, where you're the point that you're making associated with it. Like in the same way that media can kind of get on the bandwagon and run with a particular thing, and people have a certain idea of the world. Well, the same thing would be true for the way COVID was introduced and the way that we dealt with this thing that was introduced. No, I get it. I do get it. I'm not discounting you. I swear to God, I'm not.
I get it. And like, honestly, I get like, people react strongly to it because it's an emotional thing. People are like, yeah, like I know people that died. Like my people are like, I know people that died around me, my whatever, like. So it's not just like a passing headline or whatever. It's a personal thing. We all lived through, people went through crazy isolation or this or that, or maybe they lost their job or whatever it is. So I'm not saying I don't take like offense to people being like, what? That sounds crazy, man. What are you saying? All I'm saying is like
just be clear. I never said that. I'm not. I patiently listened. Just gave you.
I don't even blame you. Okay, you had a minor reaction. I don't blame you for that. I'm not even saying that. I'm not blaming you for that at all. I'm saying everybody has a really. It's like, look, it's like me telling you that the Earth,
it's flat.
But
I would have a much stronger reaction if you told me that.
In this case, how I see it is like everyone believes the Earth is flat, and I'm saying actually it's round, and people are like, what? Like, are you crazy? So everybody's, I like it, if I sound crazy to people, and I accept that and I understand that, but if you really take the time and look through this stuff, because like when that death certificate stuff, I was like, wait a minute. So I mean, I spent like several weeks going in depth.
This would be a much longer conversation. I disagree with so many of the premises that I think you're running with. And as somebody who has had to deal with the medical community for a very long time and used to do stuff like look up medical data, and then when you talk to a medical professional, you realize, oh, I'm getting this wrong because of my methodology, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm framing about it, the context that I'm setting it. It's not the way that they are thinking about it in the medical field, in the medical industry. So I am skeptical, but I don't discount what you're saying. I mean, God, man, there's so much random shit out here that could happen and that could be true that is, I can't completely discount some of what you're pointing out. So no, I'm not. I might have a reaction to it because, when at the radio station, we covered the deaths every day. We had professional doctors on every other day talking about the number of people who were dying, the people around them that were dying, the people who were, I don't believe in COVID, and yet they're in the hospital dying from COVID. Like, I feel you. I get you. I understand where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. I just disagree. You may know more about this than I do. Like, as you pointed out, you have looked further into it than I have. So I can't discount what you've found. And I won't discount what you found. I'm just skeptical.
And that's, what? Skepticism is the way to be, 100%, to be skeptical of everything. So, I mean,
but I don't want you to think that I discounted you. That's the point.
No. I don't, not at all. I don't think that. It's like I said, it's, most people, if I tell them my opinion or my analysis or whatever, it's totally counterintuitive. It's completely against like everything they have been thinking of what happened from 2020 to 2022 or whatever, or from 2020 on, and how, so like I don't, even if you were like, Dan, like if you said like, Dan, I think you're out of your mind,
I wouldn't say that. I would never say that.
No, I'm not saying you would. I wouldn't get offended. I would be like, okay, I understand. Like, let me break down why I think that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's anybody. So
no, I try not to be addicted to my guests. I mean, I was a UFO guy at my network, right? So I'm sympathetic to.
No, and I know, man. I'm happy to drink a beer with you and talk and whatever. Like, I'm happy to come back on the show. It's all good. There's no.
I would love to have you back on the show.
Yeah, we'll do it.
I really would. I really would. Dan, fantastic conversation. I didn't realize it was going to go here, but I don't know where all of my conversations is going to go. I don't like to have overly scripted conversations. I like kind of it to start at a particular point and just kind of evolve the way it is. Thank you for this, man. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this is the first time on the show. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you. I don't think on here or at the radio station. So I'm glad to finally get this opportunity where our schedules can meet up.
Definitely. No, I'm glad to come on. I appreciate you having me on. And I mean, if I had come on 6 months ago or a year ago, my analysis probably would have been quite different. It's I mean, everyone's evolving all the time, and my understanding, what I emphasize now and what I'm thinking about all the time is like how is like looking at this stuff in not only in like the daily headlines, like I said, but like the longer term, like what is the kind of bigger agenda at play? What are they trying to do? I mean, the thing I didn't mention at the very beginning, not to go back into it, but like what you asked me about at the beginning is like what I think we're in this strategy of tension, and they're trying to have left right. They're trying to create this, inflame this artificial left right divide, black white, trans, not trans, whatever kind of divide they can among the American populace to turn people against each other so they can roll out more of the preconceived, multi-generational agenda. And so I suspect that the Charlie Kirk thing is really about that. And if you look at what is being said on, CNN, on Fox News, it's all, this is war, outrage, we need to, it's not, and my message is go talk to your neighbor, like this civil war, they want to project it into reality so then people partake in it. So, get off social media, go talk to your neighbor, even if they voted
in the real world.
Yeah. I went to a farmer's market. It's like, people are like, oh, we have a civil war in this country. And I go to a farmer's market here in DC at Eastern Market yesterday. And Capitol Hill, it's like, what Capitol Hill is like. It's like,
I live there.
Oh, okay. You live in Capitol
Well, I used to live there.
Okay.
But yeah.
But like, it's kind of an interesting mix at the farmer's market because it's very multiracial. And you have a bunch of people from kind of the country who are bringing their farm produced products to sell, and like everybody's cool, and like you can't tell who voted for what, and it doesn't matter, and they're just like, people are having a good time and it's all good, everyone's just being normal. Like, that's America. That's what.
I gotta be honest, I love those farmers markets. They're so chill.
Yeah, they're great. I had the best coffee I've ever had yesterday, and I'm like, man, this is so much better than like watching Alex Jones be like, oh, this is civil war, these leftist terrorists. I'm like, this is what they want to destroy. They want somebody.
Profit. I mean, that's how they make profit.
Exactly.
I mean, like if you let's say, for example, you do a YouTube video and you put good conversation with Dan Cohen about COVID.
Right.
That video is going to get one view.
Right.
That video is going to get one view. Or if you say climate change is something, one view. If you say war with so-and-so, okay, that's going to get an uptick. It's like you're incentivized.
And you have to put like Dan Cohen exposes in caps.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like,
that shit is aggravating. But
and
that's
it's like me like calmly talking about whatever, and I'm like, well, and it's just like, okay, so it's all just like outrage, emotion. It's like that's the theater. That's how we're getting played against each other.
It's some of the stuff is just capitalistic commodification in a way that people make their profits. Exactly. And some of it is, I agree, scripted. Dan, man, thank you for this. And just so the audience will know, Dan Cohen, journalist, filmmaker, who contributed to Al Jazeera English, Alternate, Electronic Intifada, The Gray Zone, Middle East Eye, Mondeweiss, The Nation, Vice News, Mint Press. You also have, for some reason, I don't think it's Substack. You have your own.
It is. I have it on Substack, though. I want to migrate it to like a totally independent platform. But my own outlet called Uncaptured Media. So I'm not as active there as of late. I drop investigations from here to there, but because I'm working on a documentary that's consuming all my time. But uncaptured.media. So you can follow me there, and
Dan, I have appreciated this conversation, man. I like opposition, and my point is because opposition makes you defend a point of view. It makes you it clarifies sometimes your own point of view, because you could be wrong. Like I accept just a man getting old, but I could be wrong. Thank you for this, man. You be safe, okay?
100%. Thank you, Jamal. Speak soon.
Have a good one. Bye bye.